Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Tagore, Hare Bol, Tagore, Hare Bol, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada,
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sisi Gaurnitai ki jai, Go Premananda.
Hri Hri Bol.
Okay. Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Brahma Satvinam Sena Shatruhan Tattva Sankyana Vigyaptyai Jatam Vidvan Aja Swarat Bhagavantan Param Brahma Satvinam Sena Shatruhan Tattva Sankyana Vigyaptyai Jatam Vidvam Ajasvarat Bhagavantam Param Brahma Satvinam Sena Shatruhan Tattva Sankyana Vigyaptyai Jatam Vidvam Ajab Swarat Bhagavantam, the Lord, Param, Supreme, Brahma, Brahman, Satvena, having an uncontaminated existence, Amshena, by plenary portion, Shatruhan, O killer of the enemy, Vidura, Tattva Sankyana, the philosophy of the 24 material elements. Vigyaptyai, for explaining. Jatam, appeared. Vidvan, knowing. Aja, the unborn Lord, Brahma. Swarat, independent. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Maitreya continued, O killer of the enemy, the unborn Lord Brahma, who is almost independent in acquiring knowledge, could understand that a portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his quality of pure existence, had appeared in the womb of Devahuti, just to explain the complete state of knowledge known as Sankhya Yoga. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter, it is stated that the Lord himself is a compiler of Vedanta Sutra and the perfect knower of Vedanta Sutra. What is the verse? Somebody knows? Vedasya Savayed Evam Vedyo Vedanta Krit Vedaved Eva Chaham. That's the one. Similarly, the Sankhya philosophy is compiled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his appearance as Kapila. There's an imitation Kapila who has a Sankhya philosophical system, but Kapila, the incarnation of God, is different from that Kapila. Kapila, the son of Kadama Muni, in a system of Sankhya Yoga, very explicitly explained not only the material world but the spiritual world. Brahma could understand this fact because he is Swarat, almost independent in receiving knowledge. He's called Swarat because he did not go to any school or college to learn, but learn everything from within. Because Brahma is the first living creature in the universe, he had no teacher. His teacher was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, who is seated in every heart, in the heart of every living creature. What is the verse? Ishvara. Yeah, Ishvara sarvabhutalam hrideshi arjuna tishtati. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra uttanamaya. That's the one. Because Brahma is the first living creature. Oh yeah, okay, we read this. Brahma inquired knowledge directly from the Supreme Lord within the heart. Therefore, he is sometimes called Swarat or Aja. The important point is Sat Venam Shena. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, he brings with him all his paraphernalia of Vaikuntha. Therefore, his name, his form, his qualities, paraphernalia, and his entourage all belong to the transcendental world. Real goodness is in the transcendental world. Here in the material world, the quality of goodness is not pure. Goodness may exist, but there must also be a tinge of passion and ignorance. In the spiritual world, the unalloyed quality of goodness prevails. There the quality of goodness is called Shuddha-sattva, pure goodness. Although another name for Shuddha-sattva is Vasudeva, because God is born from Vasudeva. Another meaning is that when one is purely situated in the qualities of goodness, he can understand the form, name, quality, paraphernalia, and entourage of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Amshena also indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears as Kapila Dev, and he is a portion of his portion. God expends himself as Kala or as Amsha. Amsha means direct expansion, and Kala means expansion of the expansion. There's no difference between the expansion of the expansion, and the Supreme Personality of God directly, as there's no difference between one candle and another, but still the candle from which the other is lit is called original. Krishna is therefore called Parabrahman, so ultimate Godhead and cause of all causes. We read this yesterday already, this whole purport. Remember? Yes? Yes? I know. Hare Krishna. Om Gyanti Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshurmanitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Sri Guru Sri Gita Parakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Sa Sri Rupam Sagajatan Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Pradana Saitam Krishna Chaitana Devam Sri Radha Krishna Pradan Sahagana Lalitam Shivirakamitam Sa He Krishna Karna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagapati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Suri Devi Pranamami Hari Pre Vanchakalpatru Vesha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Paditanta Bhavani Vaishnavi Namo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare. So, there's a purport I would like to read to you. Very, very nice purport by Srila Prabhupada. Oops. I'm out of juice. I have no electricity. How is that possible? Where do we plug it in? You have to get, you know that big part? Okay. That big white part? Yeah. There is a very nice purport by Srila Prabhupada that helps us to understand that Vasudeva Svamiti, that everything is Vasudeva. Whatever it may be, it is Vasudeva. And generally we don't have a problem to accept that everything is God. When somebody brings us a plate of prasadam, we say, oh, this is Krishna's mercy. Right? Everybody agrees. Yesterday some people came, householders, and brought me some beautiful prasadam. And I thought, this is Krishna's mercy. But then there's another kind of mercy when Krishna kicks us. It's also Krishna's mercy. You see? That unless there's punishment, we will not advance in Krishna consciousness, at least in the initial stage. You know, like in material nature. Today we were walking over the streets here, and there's so much rubbish on the streets. And why is there no rubbish on the street in Germany? Why? Because you get punished. If you throw something on the street, you pay 100 or 200, 300, 500, 1,000 euros. This is how that works. Everything is punishment. Prabhupada told us about India, and India was spotless under the Raj, under the king. Because the king would hear from his minister. He told the minister, if you see some rubbish on the street, immediately this man must be punished. And if the street was not clean, then ultimately the minister would be punished. So either the minister didn't want to be punished, so he was punishing his subordinates, because he didn't want to be punished. And so law and order in civilization, you maintain by punishment. No doubt. Even in Singapore, when the governor of Singapore took control of the city, it was just like any other Asiatic city, he took control, he started punishing people. And now if you drop one cigarette butt, or you spit on the floor, eating pan, $1,000. $1,000. For every piece of paper, $1,000. The city is spotless. When I was there, I tried to lock the apartment. Men said, why are you doing this? I said, well, just a computer here, and nobody steals. He said, all the thieves ran to Malaysia and to Indonesia. Because thieves, their profession is to steal. They never took an education, right? They didn't go to IIT. And so the way how they survive is by stealing. You can't change a thief, that's his business. He has no other way to survive. So all the thieves ran away to other countries. In Singapore, if you have found you with this much hashish, the next day you will be hanged. It's very radical for drugs. They hang you. So consequently, nobody dares to run around. Even if your house is unpainted, you get a fine immediately. You're fined. After 1 week, house has to be paka. Otherwise they fine you. They come and say, we saw your house, this is impossible, it's unacceptable. We understand it was a rainy season, but now you have to repaint the house. Get a company, scrub down the house, sand spray the house, put a new layer on it. Otherwise, you're going to punish you. This is how that works. So it looks all very nice. You go to Western countries, it's all very clean. But if you don't, you're in trouble, particularly in Germany. Not so much in America, but in Germany, Switzerland particularly. Switzerland. They would come up to me, Herr Brinkmann, das muss doch alles seine Ordnung haben, wir sind doch in der Schweiz. Mr. Brinkmann, everything has to be its order, wir sind in der Schweiz. They would come. Even if you leave your car running at a stop too long, somebody knocks at the window and says, you gotta shut down your engine. This is a waste of energy. You're polluting the environment, Mr. Herr Brinkmann. Like this. So everything is regulated because that's the only thing. It has nothing to do with the people. Any people are by nature undisciplined. You know, that's their discipline from childhood on. People have to be disciplined, you know, if you do that. And Krishna is a master of disciplining. You know, he's most liberal, but he disciplines everybody for every damn thing you do. If it's wrong, you get the chop. No excuse, right? You killed somebody, the same thing will happen to you. You torture somebody, same thing will happen to you, right? There are so many atrocities being committed all the time by humans, but they are just the long arm of Krishna. You know, everybody is just a long arm. And this, come on baby, light my fire. Okay, there it is. So Prabhupada said under the Raj, British time, actually the government was run by the kings. The British just would, you know, milk the cow and suck up the diamonds. But they wouldn't get involved in day-to-day management, you know. There was king, and the kings were by nature very strict. So India, Prabhupada said, spotless, you could eat from the floor. Prabhupada said 2 times a day in Calcutta the roads were sprinkled with rose water by elephants. That's what he told us, you know. And now it is a shamble because there's no king. You have to have a king, you know. Sages in the forest, they live in anarchy. Anarchy means no rule. Everybody knows how to take care of himself. You go into any hermitage, it is spotless. There's no need to somebody punishing or going around saying, your hermitage stinks. Everybody is complaining. Rubbish in front. No. Everybody is responsible. So they live in anarchy, means no rules, no government. Then for human society there is monarchy. That's the system. Actually, monarchy. Krishna, I told this, and all the famous king understood it that way. I spoke this Bhagavad Gita on the sun planet, and all the sages understood it, all the kings understood it that way. And so that's how society runs, by kings. When the monarchy deteriorates, what is the next stage? Democracy. Then democracy. Every fool can be the king. You're laughing. What is the name of your chief minister? Laddu? Right? You're from that time. No, you're from Rajasthan. Who is from Laddu's place? Huh? You're from Laddu's place. Everybody knows Laddu. He's famous. Even Germany. People want to make a film about him. You know, because he's in prison, but he lives very comfortably in prison. Don't worry about Laddu. And before you know, he's out, back in politics, right? He's totally unqualified, right? The king has to be qualified. You know, Mr. Bush, or what is his name? Trump should never, ever be put into the position of responsibility because the man is irresponsible. Irresponsible. And why did he have some good luck in his life that he became the president? You know why? Because in 1968, when we had the first Rath Yatra in New York, his Trump Tower was an empty space. It was cleaned out for building. So our Jayananda approached Mr. Trump and said, can we build the Rath Cart there? He said, yes, you can. It costs you $1 a month or for the time. And we built our first Rath Cart. And that's why he became the president. There was the best thing this guy ever did in his whole life. That he gave facility to Lord Jagannath. That is not a small thing. You know, that's not a small thing. And so when the monarchy, Prabhupada explains it, monarchy deteriorates into democracy. When democracy deteriorates, it becomes what? Huh? No. Capitalism, you said? No. It becomes a dictatorship. Then some big dictator comes, some Hitler comes. Our democracy was destroyed in Germany. So many people fighting, communists on the street, capitalists fighting with guns. Then the call for a strong man. So the democracy deteriorates into dictatorship. And then when that deteriorates, then you have only the rule of the people. And everybody does whatever he wants. You know, anarchy. You again there's anarchy. Anarchy at the top and anarchy at the bottom. You know, but that's of people who are not worthy to live in an unregulated society. So Prabhupada explains all these things, you know, if you read his books, everything is explained. How society deteriorates, and monarchy is important, family. When monarchy is destroyed or the family is destroyed, family unit, you know, like now in America you have the prevalence of feminism. This is cultural suicide. That means the culture is committing suicide, guaranteed, because it completely destroys the family. No husband can be a husband if the wife is a terrorist. It's not possible. He can't protect her. She's wild. So therefore he runs away. Many women in America, they will go through 4 or 5 husbands. He's fed up after 1 week, or 1 month, or 1 year, and runs away. And they don't want to marry anymore. So why should I marry? You know, I make money and the wife runs away with 50% of my wealth after 2 weeks of being married, which is actually the fact. You know, after 2 weeks you marry, and some of these ladies are very callous. They marry a man who has a lot of money, and then they put a divorce in after months, and they own half of the property. It's the fastest way to make money, by divorce. You know. So therefore, you know, the Vedic standard, as described in Manu Samhita, is best. That's the best. There's no higher standard than that, because Manu is the father of mankind. Manu landed on his boat. If you go to Manali, who has been in Manali? No? I've been in Manali. It's the only Manu temple in all of India. And there's a rock there where Manu tied his boat. After he was pulled by the fish incarnation, he tied his boat to this rock. And that's why there's a Manu temple there, right? The first Manu temple, only Manu temple in all of India is in Manali. That's why it's called Man Ali, Man, place of Manu. And so you have Manu Samhita, and it says, he who kills the cow, he who eats the cow, he who distributes the flesh of the cow, he who cuts the cow, he who buys the cow, he who serves the cow, they're all equally punishable. They're all equally punishable. It's called, in America, the RICO law. They couldn't catch, what's his name, this famous gangster, forgot his name. They couldn't catch him because he had always somebody else pulling the trigger. He wouldn't do anything. He said, I didn't do anything. I'm not. He always had perfect heavy, very heavy punishment. They don't realize it. You know, I remember one time I was in Jaipur, and there was a boy, small boy, and he was beating a cow. And I went and I whacked him in the face. And as a foreigner, you should not be very careful in India to do that. You know, all of India is against you if you hit an Indian man as a foreigner. You know, all of India, all the people gang up against you immediately. You know, it's a dangerous situation. But I was so upset. You know, beat him. And so there were just the people around me and grabbing me. And then one man said, no, 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 no. One tilak on his face. He said, I saw what happened. This boy was beating this cow. And this sadhu came and interfered. He should not be punished. This boy should be punished. And so then we became very respectful. You see? So in Krishna's kingdom, there's nothing for free. If you do something wrong, the Supreme Lord, who is supreme merciful, he gives you punishment. But you cannot see this, that it is Krishna. You cannot see in your previous life what you did. And so there is this wonderful purport that I want to present to you. While ordinary humans see distress as something outside of God's jurisdiction. So why are you suffering? Well, I don't know. Right? I don't know, I'm suffering. Srila Prabhupada explains the position a devotee of God takes. Now, listening to this nectar, very beautiful, very important, from Srimad Bhagavatam. When a devotee is in distress, he sees that the Lord has appeared as distress to relieve or purify the devotee from the contamination of his actions. While one is in the material world, one is in various conditions, and therefore a devotee sees a condition of distress as but another feature of the Lord, another form of the Lord. He sees this distress as the Lord. We accept happiness. Somebody brings us a pizza, you know, or here in South India, a nice uttapam, like I was given the other day. Oh, this is Krishna's mercy. But when distress comes, then he did it to me. You, why are you doing this to me? Right? We become accusers because we are accusing the immediate cause. But he's just the immediate cause. Behind that, there's the ultimate cause. Right? The laws of nature. And then there's the sarva karana karanam, the cause of all causes. And that is Krishna. And not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. So everybody in Germany, everybody in Europe knows this saying that not a blade of grass moves without God's sanction. Right? In India also? Common saying? Not a blade of grass moves without the sanction. But people don't relate that when they suffer. They don't relate it. Well, it says, not a blade of grass moves, so the Lord is involved. That's why I'm suffering. That Peter Burwash, he's a very famous tennis player. And he was a disciple of Prabhupada. I don't think he took ever initiation because he didn't think himself to be qualified. But he gave Prabhupada a lot of support, a lot of also financial help in supporting our movement. He was wonderful. So then one day, one devotee stayed in his house. And then when the devotee left, Peter Burwash came and opened his locker and the money was gone. The boy took the money with him. And so Peter Burwash went to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, one of your disciples did something very bad. Prabhupada, what did he do? He took my money. How much was it? Well, a couple $1,000. And said, Prabhupada, are you angry? He said, yes, very angry. And Prabhupada said, don't be angry. He said, he's the instrument of your karma. You did the same thing. to somebody else before. Otherwise it is not possible. Nobody can suffer more or suffer more distress, say violence from somebody, unless he caused the same amount of distress, emotional or physical, to somebody else. It's not possible. Or even the demons. Not even the demons suffer more than they deserve. In the Old Testament it says eye for eye, tooth for tooth. And the priest cannot explain what that means, nor does a rabbi. Rabbi is able to explain it. It is what it is. Tooth for tooth, tooth for eye. It says eye for eye, tooth for tooth. So this is a law of nature. And so, like it says here, a devotee sees condition of distress as another feature of the Lord. And the famous verse, of course, is Tati Nukampam Shukshamikshemano. In the 10th canto, the verse 14:8. Does anybody of you know this verse by heart? Yes? Quote. Yes. 1 second. Let me pull it up. There's some problem here. I can't pull it up. There's a problem here. My database. It should not happen with a Mac, but it did happen. You can crash a program, but you cannot crash the operating system. That's almost impossible. It's based on Unix, and Unix is very simple and very stable. A devotee therefore regards distress as a great favor of the Lord because he understands that he's being cleansed of contamination. Teshamham samudhata mrityu samsara sagadat. The appearance of distress is a negative process intended to give the devotee relief from the material world, which is called mrityu samsara, or the constant repetition of birth and death. So let's hear this sentence again, very carefully. If you just concentrate for one moment on this, open your ears. A devotee regards distress as the appearance of distress is a negative process intended to give the devotee relief from the material world. It's a negative process. What is a positive process? If there's a negative process, there must be a positive process. To get free from the relief of karmic reactions. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Any type of devotional service frees one from the reactions of past. That's a positive. So if you do that, like a child obeys the father, he does something wrong, says, I'm very sorry, Dad, I won't do it again. It's done. But if you don't do that, then you have to suffer, right? Then you have to suffer. So the negative process to purify you and me from the reactions of our activities is suffering under the law of karma. And if you turn to Krishna, by Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, then even by chanting one name of Krishna, more sins are forgiven than one is able to commit in a whole lifetime. Stated by Lord Chaitanya, he quoted this verse. There's a collection of verses written by Lord Chaitanya himself. I have it somewhere. It's available. It's he himself, and he chose one. This is one of the verses he chose, Lord Chaitanya. So the positive process is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Sevanam, Archanam, Dasyam. This is how we become free from all sinful reactions. And the negative process is you pay the price. You pay the price. And so, appearance of distress is a negative process intended to give the devotee relief from the material world, which is called mrityu samsara, constant repetition of birth and death. And it's in every culture people understand this. There is a famous myth in Greek culture, ancient Greek culture. There was a Greek sage, his name was Sisyphus. And he saw how Zeus, which is actually Indra, he saw Indra in an inappropriate way, together with his consort. And he laughed. And so the wife became very angry. And she cursed him, therefore, I curse you to live a life that you have to roll a big rock up a mountain. And when it reaches the top, it rolls down again. And again you have to. And again you have to. So this is a very famous myth. And even people don't understand it. One famous philosopher, Albert Camus, he's a French existentialist, he wrote a commentary, The Myth of Sisyphus. And he described that is our life. That we are rolling a stone up a hill and it comes down again, and again we roll it up. He said, our life is useless. Once you understand that there's no meaning in life, that it is useless, just useless labor. Once you understand that, it means you're a philosopher. But you do that which is useless with great enthusiasm. That is the victory of a human being. He does something which is useless but with great enthusiasm. That was his philosophy. Although it is all nonsense, although it doesn't lead to anything, you do it with great enthusiasm. He wrote this myth. And other people came to the similar conclusion, like there is one famous writer. He said, life is a voyage from nowhere to nowhere, always and forever, from nowhere to nowhere, from nowhere to nowhere to nowhere to nowhere. And then he took a gun and shot himself. Right? He took a gun because that is a consequence. But we understand there's some truth in it. Material life is useless. If you understand it is useless, but you're pious, then you understand, and it is the beginning of my spiritual life. Right? It's the beginning of you realize there's no use to be to rot in material world. It is completely useless labor. You turn to God. If you don't have God in your life, you shoot yourself. So the ultimate conclusion of material life, it is from nowhere to nowhere, from nowhere to nowhere, nowhere. Right? And you shoot yourself. It's either suicide or worship. This is the only alternative. And many of us, I can only take for myself, I stood at this junction. And I realized, that the end of material knowledge, when you realize it is entirely useless. There's no gain in it, unless you use it for Krishna, unless you turn to worship. So this myth of Sisyphus is a very interesting story, actually. Our purport to that is, yes, that is material life. You roll you're born, a little child, and you have this material burden, and you roll it up the hill. And it's just when you come to the top of it, then you die. And again you're born. And again you roll this stone up the hill. And when it reaches, then you die. And another time, you keep doing this, one life after another, rolling this big stone up the hill, and just, when you just, you die. You die. And you die without any purpose. And you utter your last wish. I heard the last wish of a person, some devotee told me, was he saw it. The guy died and he said, Paneer, you know. Paneer is the goal of life. So this is actually very described, exactly described in Greek mythology, the myth of Sisyphus. And you call in material life, if somebody works himself to the bone in a factory, right? In a factory, work in a factory is very nice, it's very nice. Very nice in the factory, it's very nice, very nice, very nice. Very nice, very nice, very nice. Yes, it's very nice, it's very nice, very nice, very nice. Like this, you know, in an assembly line, it's very nice in the assembly line, it's very nice in the assembly line. Assembly line is very nice, it's very nice. Assembly line. You know, that is Sisyphus work. You call it Sisyphus Arbeit. You don't see a meaning in it anymore, just for money. You know, it is useless. Prabhupada told us, useless. You know, the animals don't understand that. You know, these dogs here, they're wasting their time. Every time there's a kirtan, they should sit on their back and howl, Hare Krishna, howl with us in kirtan. They can do that. I have personally seen that. When we bought this property in Vrindavan, we didn't have a boundary wall. And when we were eating every morning chapati, there was a dog. He came, you know, and he stretched out a whole dandavat with his feet to the back. Normally dogs don't do that, you know, feet to the back and the front pats like this, you know. And he looked at us and he came closer, another 3 dandavats. And then he just sat there and looked with his eyes at us. And then I threw him a bunch of chapatis. And he went like this, you know, with his head. He was Indian in his last life. He went like that, you know, paid him dandavat and left. Every day he came. He's a devotee, obviously. And we had one famous, in our rainbow gathering, there was one dog, her name was Isabella. And every time, I think I told you this story, no? Every time we had kirtan in our tent, Radhanath Maharaj was also there. We were singing. And whenever Radhanath Maharaj sang or I sang, the dog looked and he was quiet. And then when everybody sang, he went, woo, woo, woo. He was chanting with us. This went on, I've seen this Isabella dog for years on rainbow gatherings. As soon as the kirtan started, she ran over like this, you know, away from, what is his name? I forgot the name of the husband, of her lord, you know, Vaikuntha or something. And she came over, sat down and listened to the kirtan. And every time the kirtan, everybody sang, she went like this. Obviously, you see. She is a very intelligent dog. These dogs are not intelligent. You never see them chanting. They're just making noise. Right? So let me continue this purport here. To save a surrendered soul from repeated birth and death, the Lord purifies him of contamination by offering him a little distress. This cannot be understood by a non-devotee. But a devotee can see this because he's vipasshet, or learned. A devotee, how does a devotee understand this? Because he understands scripture. He sees life through scripture, not through his mind, through scripture. Yashastram vidim utsrija. He sees through scripture. And he can understand, why am I suffering? Why is God has anything to do with my suffering? Why? What is the verse? Kamana deva nechina. Sri Bhagavan Vasha, Lord says, 3rd chapter of Bhagavatam, Kamana deva nechina. Under my supervision, everybody suffers the result of his own deeds. It's clearly said by Krishna himself. You know, and then there's another verse, that I want to read to you, which is even more explicit. Give me a second. That's the top verse in this regard. And I give you the quote where you can find it. Here. No, wrong. Here it comes. This is my favorite verse. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.24.13. If you make a note of this. 10.24.13. It is by the force of karma that a living entity takes birth. And it is by karma alone that he meets his destruction. His happiness, his distress, fear, and sense of security all rise as effects of karma. This was told by Vasudeva to Kamsa when he tried to kill Vasudeva's wife, Devaki. By force of karma that a living entity takes birth, by karma alone that he meets his destruction, his happiness, distress, fear, and sense of security all rise as effects of karma. Thus, no one is innocent, not even a child. Not even a child. No one is exempt. A child is suffering. It is his doing from past life. Krishna is samoham sarva bhuteshu. He's equal to all. Namedvestyo. He's not envious or he's not partial. He's equal to all. But if you do something wrong, you have to suffer. If you kill people, you have to suffer. There is this famous boy of Chelyabinsk. Chelyabinsk is a city, forbidden city in Soviet Union, in former Soviet Union, because in Chelyabinsk the nuclear bomb was produced. In the Ural, I've been there many times, and so there was a famous boy called the boy of Chelyabinsk, and he could predict things. In future, he said amazing things. He said, Soviet Union coming to the end. He said, how is it? There's one man, he will bring about the destruction of Soviet Union. How does he look? He has a mark on his forehead. It's not Krishna Goswami. It's Gorbachev. He has a mark on his forehead, right? He said he has a mark on his forehead. And his name will be Gorbachev. In Gorda, Bacho means actually one who saves. In Bengali, one who saves. He destroyed the Soviet Union. He predicted. And so one time they asked him, where's Stalin? Since you know so many things, where's Stalin? They made a film about it. I said, I actually saw him. Where? In hell. I went. And he was sitting in a glass bowl filled with boiling oil. And he was sitting in this boiling oil with his head under the oil. And two guys stood there, chokidars, to watch him, to make sure he can't escape. And he asked these people, and this guy inside, he was screaming. He was suffering. It's a subtle body, cannot burn, Screaming, and said, how long is he in there? Well, since 40 years. When is he getting out? He said, as soon as he has paid all the pain, physically or emotionally, he caused to others. And so they say he will be in there for a good while. So it's precisely, as soon as he has paid his dues, he can get out. And he's taking birth as a dog or something. He's relieved from that. That is actually the truth, that if you turn to Krishna, aham tvam sarva papabhyo. I forgive you all sin. If you don't turn to Krishna, then you have to pay the price. Are there any questions? I think I would better stop. Yes? Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premananda Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, thank you.